my futon, hold it up and smoke it. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for. Transgression, a progression of a war we ain't asked for.
It's madness, yo. All the things that we could talk about.
Call it.
But let's talk about these urban circumstances real quick.
And basically, it's
we got this.
So,
revolution.
Winner's frosty hand. Muhammad is the fame's name, forever stand.
Standing on royal fusing of justice for the few, ridiculed by the pale terrorists bent on genocidal obsession, rooted in fear of neglection and abandonment, fueled by nightmares of ancestors.
Because at the end of the day, I still want to be able to I don't dislike George Washington.
The kind of friends I think all friends should be like my friends. My friends are the kind of friends I think everyone needs. My friends see the things at times I don't see. My friends hate the police.
What has changed?
Are deemed the criminals, and the blacks are deemed the criminals.
Shut up for help.
Reflection ain't nothing but the inner child trying to see you. You gonna look? You gonna pick up that book?
Lord, keep me far from the faith. Guide me through night and day. Teach me your ways. Show me the righteous way to sway. Lord, can you teach me, please? Show me the way, I'd say. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to this episode of the Urban Conservative Coffee and Conversations. I hope people brought their coffee, their tea, their Coke, their Diet Coke, their Mountain Dew, whatever you drink, because we're going to take a blast into the past today. And we're going to talk about, because, you know, we're in the holiday season and we just passed a holiday called Thanksgiving. So I really want to go into, because we were always taught that, you know, in school, that Christopher Columbus discovered America. And come to find out, you know, after researching that we were lied to in school, because there is actual untaught evidence that blacks were here first, because we didn't come here as slaves. We came here as master. And I want people to really think about that quote, that we didn't come here first as slave. We came here first as master. Because in Ethiopia, king is niggas, right? But see, here in America, we were taught that niggers is a bad word. And so they literally have programmed us, indoctrinated, to teach us away from our true history, and to really just teach us that blacks came from nothing, that we were slaves, and we were so much more than slaves. And I want to get into a video that really explains the African-American history before Columbus. So I want to play this real quick.
Christopher Columbus as the first man to discover the Americas with an Aryan colonial agenda. In Wayner's book, Africa Discovery of Africa, he explains that Columbus noted in his journal that the Native Americans conferred skinned people had come from the southeast in boats, trading in gold-tipped spears. It was found also that the ratio of properties of gold, copper, and silver alloy were identical to the spears then being forged in Guinea. According to an American historian and linguist, Leo Weiner of Harvard University, one of the strongest pieces of evidence to support the fact that Africans sailed to America before Christopher Columbus was a journal entry from Columbus himself. There is now a growing body of evidence to support the idea that Africans did in fact visit the Americas long before Columbus, as there have been solid claims about African explorers, sailors, and traders who made their way to the Americas in ancient times. The idea that Africans may have visited the Americas in pre-Columbian times is not a new one. In fact, widely untaught evidence exists that Africans sailed to the Americas and settled centuries before Columbus.
I use Wix for my pens.
While we commend Christopher Columbus, or should we say Cristobal Colon, for sailing the seas in search of new land on Europe's behalf, he was not the first man to make that journey. However, as is frequently noted on this day, when Columbus landed, natives already inhabited the land. He called them Indians because he initially thought he had reached India. Columbus's first landfall in October 12, 1492, most likely somewhere near the Bahamas or the Dominican Republic, was a later time in history. Let us even limit our scope within Europe, and Columbus will still not be the first European to have visited the Americas, as many genuine historians suspect that Viking Leif Erikson, who established a settlement in northeastern Canada in the 11th century, was the first European to come to the Americas. The truth is that Black Africans, Indians, Polynesians, Chinese, and Arabs had visited the Americas long before Columbus. Enormous Olmec head statues with African facial characteristics found throughout Central and South America support that Africans had settled in America long before its apparent discovery. Ranging up to 11.15 feet in height and weighing 30 to 40 tons, these statues generally depict helmeted black men with large eyes, broad fleshy noses. Columbus was never the first man to arrive at the Americas, rather he was the first to commit genocide. Sex, slavery of young girls, rape, pedophilias, mass mutilations, arbitrary killings, and transatlantic slavery in the Americas. The manufactured history by Columbus's European sponsors must be exposed and forcefully rejected. Columbus and his men took to hunting the fleeing Lucayans down for sport, and after murdering them, using their bodies as dog food. Surviving Lucayans fled to the surrounding mountains to escape the sadistic savagery and barbaric treatment of the so-called civilized Christian Europeans toward them. There are eyewitness accounts of fallen Lucayan warriors being fed to hunting dogs while they were still alive, screaming and wailing in agony as the dogs feasted on their limbs and entrails. Columbus saw this as a perfect excuse to go to war, and with heavily armed troops and advanced weaponry, it wound up being a very short war. The natives were quickly slaughtered, having only spears, rocks, and other primitive tools to fight with. Eventually, the natives rebelled. History has it that on Christopher Columbus' second visit to the Americas, this time armed to the teeth, he demanded that the Lucayan people give his men food and gold and allow them to have sex with their women. When the Lucayan refused, Columbus responded by ordering that their ears and noses be cut off so that the now disfigured offended could return to their villages and serve as a warning to others. The ugly picture that emerges is of a brutal man who massacred the existing population of the islands, the Bahamas amongst others, where he landed, used girls as young as 8 or 10 for sex, and conducted mass mutilations in his hunt for gold. Matthew Inman, the Oatmeal's author, not only exposes this myth, but also shows us who Columbus really was. The U.S. celebrates October 14th as Columbus Day as one of its 3 federal holidays, reinforcing the myth that Columbus was a great explorer who discovered the New World. Research by some scholars provides population estimates of the pre-Columbian or pre-European contact of the Americas to be as high as 112 million in 1492, which declined to less than 6 million by 1650. The so-called discovery of the Americas by Christopher Columbus was followed by possibly the greatest demographic disaster in the history of the world. He described these people as having black skin, curly hair, and other features that were characteristic of Africans. Similarly, the Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci, who traveled to the Americas in the late 15th and early 16th centuries region. He also notes that some of the indigenous people had features that were characteristic of Africans, such as curly hair and dark skin. In his book, Natural History of the Indies, he describes seeing Negroes among the indigenous people of Hispaniola, present-day Dominican Republic, and Haiti. One of the most well-known accounts of African presence in the Americas comes from the Spanish explorer, Gonzalo Fernández de Oviedo y Valdez, who traveled to the Americas in the early 16th century. Thor Heyerdahl was a Norwegian adventurer and ethnographer with a background in zoology, botany, and geography, made voyages to demonstrate the possibility of contact between widely separated ancient peoples, notably the Rai expedition of 1970, when he sailed from the west coast of Africa to Barbados in a papyrus reed boat. These strong currents, which Malay oral tradition describes as rivers in the middle of the sea, could have helped propel African vessels to the American continents. Travel between Africa and the Americas was possible because of the worldwide ocean winds and currents that caused drift routes from east to west. Africans were indeed sailors, that a division of Negro sea captains and mariners is reported to have been in the Egyptian navy of the 19th dynasty, and the East Africans sailed between their countries and China in the 13th century. How could Africans, who are not popularly known as seamen, have crossed the 1,500 Atlantic miles to the American continents? Early 14th century Atlantic expedition headed by Mali King Abu Bakari may have reached the Americas. The launching of the expedition is recorded by Arab historian Ibn Fadl al-Omari. Archaeological evidence also supports the idea that Africans traveled to India and China in the 13th century. In his memoirs titled Rihla, Ibn Battuta describes his travels in detail, including his experiences in the court of the Chinese emperor. Born in 1304 in Tangier, Morocco, Ibn Battuta embarked on a journey of exploration that took him to many parts of the world, including India and China. There is strong and compelling evidence to suggest that Africans traveled to India and China in the 13th century, long before the arrival of European explorers in these regions. While it is possible that some of these plants may have been brought over by European traders or explorers, the fact that they have been found in pre-Columbian archaeological sites suggests that they may have arrived much earlier, potentially as a result of contact between Africans and indigenous Americans. The presence of these and other African plant species in the Americas provides compelling evidence to suggest that Africans visited the Americas long before Columbus. The African oil palm has been found in South America, including in the Amazon region, where it was likely brought over by Africans or other non-European visitors. Another example is the kola nut, Cola nitida, which is native to West Africa and is used in traditional African medicine and religious ceremonies. This suggests that Africans may have brought the kola nut with them during their visits to the Americas. Kola nuts have been found in archaeological sites in the Americas, including a site in Brazil that dates back to the 14th century, long before Columbus arrived. One example of an African plant species that has been found in the Americas is the tamarind tree, Tamarindus indica. In the Americas, tamarind trees have been found in archaeological sites dating back to before Columbus's arrival, indicating that they may have been brought over by Africans or other non-European visitors. The tamarind tree is native to Africa, but has been introduced to many parts of the world as a food and medicine plant. While some of these plants may have been brought over by European explorers or traders, there is evidence to suggest that many of them arrived in the Americas much earlier, potentially as a result of contact between Africans and indigenous Americans. The presence of certain plant species that are native to Africa in the Americas provides further evidence to support the idea that Africans visited the Americas long before Columbus. Villacorta has written, "Any way you view it, Mexican civilization had its origin in Africa." Indian scholar Rafik Jiarazboy appears to have been right when he wrote, "The black began his career in America, not as slave, but as master." Even early Mexican scholars were convinced that the impact of the black explorers on the New World was profound and enduring.
So I just watched the video that a lot of untaught history isn't taught in American schools, in American public education. And we see I sit there and I wonder, as as time has gone on and we're able to use such services as Google, as artificial intelligence, and we're able to go into archived information. We're able to go into information that wasn't it was hidden. It wasn't very accessible to get to. Wasn't it was a lot of, even now today, there's still hoops and hurdles you got to jump through to get information. But that's why we have legislation and things that work for us called Freedom of Information Act. And that is an act that it's supposed to, and I know there's amendments to it, and there's loopholes, but basically that legislation is there for transparency. And still we don't get transparency. And I always wondered, why is that? Why don't we get the transparency part? And it's because we're okay with lying to each other. We tell little white lies. We're okay with, celebrating genocide. But yet when we sit here and we scream out free Palestine, we're anti-Semitic. But how isn't it when you guys celebrate Thanksgiving, you're not anti-Native American? When literally that day they did Christopher Columbus did a genocide on Native Americans, and yet we celebrate something that's supposed to be about family. It's supposed to be about gathering with loved ones, when that day was literally a genocide. A genocide. For what? Because of something that they wanted, right? Because of something that they wanted. They wanted the land. They wanted the knowledge. How is that not what the same thing that is going on over in Israel and Palestine? Because we have all of these, and I'm going to take this a step further, and people are going to be like, oh, this Negro crazy. I don't care what you guys think about me, but facts are facts. And we got to start realizing that these politics, politicians, celebrities, entertainment. These people all have an agenda. They have an agenda. It's not about community. It's not about unity. It's none of that. They have an agenda, because I sit there and I look at the likes of a Will Smith, a LeBron James, Jay-Z. Shit, fuck that. I'm gonna even throw Meek Mill in there, since he just supposedly helped get legislation passed in Pennsylvania. I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying? These people, Kim Kardashian. But yet, why do we have so many brothers and sisters that are locked up and are innocent? But yet we have all of this legislation. We have all of these acts, amendments. And what does it do? Because it's just paper. It's just words at the end of the day. Because I'll tell you right now, when they can literally twist and turn them words to make it work for them, just like we've seen over and over and over and over again, right? Over and over again. Because we've seen it with Marvin Haynes, who was just exonerated. Welcome home, Marvin. We've seen that with Maya Burrell. We've seen it with numerous cases. We've seen it where police sit there and stick up for each other when they know they're in the wrong. So how are we supposed to say that we got good police out here in these streets when you don't even have police officers that'll speak out until they're retired, until they're and they're former officers? And I appreciate that. I really do. But where are the people that are going to stand out, that are behind that badge now, and speak out and tell the truth? And tell the truth. Who's going to do that? Because that's what got Malcolm killed. That's what got Martin killed. That's what got Fred. Shit, that's what got Jesus executed. Since we're going to talk about history, because you can't talk about Jesus without talking about Judas. You can't. You can't. You cannot talk about Jesus and not talk about Judas. You can't. And that's the problem, because everybody want to talk about they're a Christian. They want to talk about this. I'm going to say it like this, and cancel me if you cancel me, right? God created Adam and Eve. Why is that? To recreate, right? Because I'll tell you right now, it shames me, and it's sick to see when we're teaching our kids that men can have babies. That's sick to me. And at the end of the day, because I live in Minnesota, where in a state, they passed legislation that is going to put tampons in elementary school bathrooms. You know why I have an issue with that? It's not, I love gay people. I love trans people. I love all people. But when you start indoctrinating our kids and sexualizing and grooming, because that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it grooming, because if you've never been to any type of sex offender classes, please look some of this shit up, because I'm not lying. The same thing that you hear in these groups is the same shit that I see on TV. It's a grooming tactics, right? As a father of daughters, and to sit here and they're adults now, you know, but at one point they were teenagers and they felt like they could just wear whatever they wanted to wear. No, fuck that. It don't always, no, because you literally have people out here that's sexualized, right? We have deputies, sheriff deputies. We have police officers that are literally getting caught in stings, right? That are getting caught in sex stings and soliciting minors, prostitution. And yet, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? What do we do about it? We don't do anything about it. We sit there and we be quiet. We sit there and we be quiet because why? We're too afraid to speak up. But if more people were, and we're like, and I'm going to say this but I'm going to say something after I say it. If more people were like Kanye West, right? More people were like Charleston White. If more people were like Reverend Tim Christopher, We would be people that aren't afraid to call out the system, right? They might, and the crazy part is, and I said those three names for a reason, right? Because one, you have a celebrity. B, Charleston. A, I'm talking about Kanye West. B, we have a celebrity, or A, we have a celebrity, Kanye West. B, we have a former activist, somebody that was trying to make change, but seeing that the only way you can literally get heard is to be out here bullshitting and just talk the way that you want to talk, right? Now, C, we have a reverend who has a nonprofit that is grassroots, and they still say something about his delivery, even though he comes from the Word of God. They don't like his delivery because he comes from the Word of God. Now, you tell me where you have three different instances of individuals that come at it. You have Kanye West, who is a millionaire, whatever, and gets told the way that he comes out and talks, it's about the words he says. And then they want to call him anti-Semitic. How can you call somebody anti-Semitic when they are Semitic themselves? I will never understand that. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I will never understand that. How can you call somebody anti-Semitic when they are Semitic themselves? That's how indoctrinated and programmed we are, because instead of sitting here looking to understand what we're saying, we just go with the flow. We just go with the masses instead of doing our own research and figuring out what the fuck that means, right? And I don't mean to be cussing. I'm really, really, really I'm not trying to change my delivery. What I'm trying to change is the way that I talk, because I want people to understand and I want people to be educated on what I'm talking about. And I know that when I cuss, I lose viewers, and I don't want to lose viewers anymore. And so I get tired of that. But I want to come out here and I want to tell the truth. I want people to understand that there is a way that we can combat this. But the only way that we combat it is we have to call out the bullshit. We have to call out the bullshit. We have to, because if we don't, we're not going to get anywhere. What has something that I know that for the last 3 years, all that I've heard is silence equals violence. But yet, why is everybody being silent? Ben Crump, you have a law degree, sir. Why aren't you out here trying to educate people on how to free their innocent brothers and sisters, or their moms and dads, right? Al Sharpton, why aren't you out here trying to educate people instead of following behind Massa? My son, the general, same thing. Why aren't, and then, this is the crazy part. Everybody want to talk about they a gangster. Everybody want to talk about they the biggest thug. They this, they that, right? But won't bust a grape in a motherfucking food fight. Won't bust a grape in a food fight. Because every time shit happens, where them niggas at? Where are them niggas at? They're not on the front lines. They're not on the front lines. I can tell you that right now, they're not on the front lines. Because you know why? Because they don't give a fuck about our community, first of all. Because at the end of the day, they're going to go back out to the suburbs. They're going to go back to where they don't have to see none of this shit, right? Because first of all, they don't live in poverty anymore. Your pastor, your community pastor, don't live in your community. I'm going to say that again. Your community church, right? Your pastor doesn't live in your community, but comes and takes the community's money. Make it make sense. They don't live in poverty. How can you, when you're out here having an event, a vigil for a child, a baby that was murdered, And the pastor got a never broke again shirt on again. What kind of blasphemy is that? It's because people say they love Jesus, but they can't love Judas. See, that it's not about loving Judas. It's about understanding Judas, right? Because I've sat here and I've literally been called Judas, right? When Judas and the Black Messiah movie came out, man, everybody named Mama in the movement was calling somebody a William O'Neill, was calling them a Judas. And didn't even understand what the fuck that meant. Because I'll tell you right now, Cortez, you're not no motherfucking Messiah, nigga. You're not a Messiah. You ain't nowhere near a motherfucking Messiah, right? That's the whole crazy part. And that's where that narcissistic and that ego shit comes into play, right? And people got to understand this, because this is chess, not checkers. It's chess, not checkers. But people see it, and that's why we're so far behind. And I understand more why now. Because first of all, we as Black people, we don't have patience, right? We don't want to pick up a book and educate ourselves, because we would rather listen to some murder music, or go pop some bands at the strip club, or go pop a perk, or go sip on some lean, or go fuck with some bitches. Then instead of doing the right thing, but then we'll come out and say we'll do a turkey giveaway. We'll give out some backpacks. And what we supposed to be doing the right thing, right? But what about all that other bullshit you be doing on every other day? Come on, you gotta understand. You gotta understand. All of this shit is by design. By design. By design. By design. By design. And because we're too uneducated, we can't combat it. We can't fight it. Because that's why we can't fight fire with fire, right? That's what everybody don't understand. We can fight fire with fire. But people choose not to, because you got to be, to fight fire with fire, you got to be educated, right? Because right now we don't got no bullets. We ain't got none. We can't, and that's why we fight in a way that we don't, our anger, they only see our anger when we buildings go on fire, or we're throwing rocks, we're throwing glass, right? But there's something so much greater that can hurt them than you picking up a rock. Are you picking up a mocktail cocktail? Are you even picking up a gun, right? Because you know what they're scared of? They're scared of a nigga with a brain, not a nigga with a gun. Because a nigga with a brain is way more dangerous than a nigga with a gun. Right? Self-protection. Self-protection. I want to play another little video here. And this is off of Twitter. This is Malcolm X. Or not Malcolm, Martin, my bad, Martin Luther King, MLK. But he talks about how, again, how Black people always treated. So,
I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are Black?
White America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. Became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. and yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
So, you know, you sit there and you think about it. How can we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we don't have anything, right? Because here's the thing, we came over here with nothing, and then they gave us this so-called freedom with nothing, right? But that's not how it started for them. Nobody's came to America except black people with any type of advantage to gain ahead, right? Because we came here with nothing. When we came to America, we were property. We were the same thing you got in what you're listening to me on, right? Property, your property. Because you know what? We had serial numbers. The same thing with these Social Security numbers. Now, when you go back and you do your own research, right? You find out what a Social Security. Yeah.
My cleaning stuff leaks.
Okay. I'll be on in a minute. Damn, the counter's wet. Well, my bad, y'all. But I forgot where I was going with that. Where the fuck was I going with that? But we sit there and we look at everything that has happened, and we got to understand why. Social Security numbers, marriage license, right? There was a whole women's suffrage movement. Women had to fight to get rights. But nobody wants to talk about that. Does anybody know what happened December 15th? And let's say 1593, right? I think that's the right year. And 1593. Does anybody know what happened? Does anybody? Anybody know? Anybody know? Wow, nobody knows. Nobody knows what happened then. 1791, December 15th, 1791. The United States Bill of Rights was ratified, comprising the first 10 amendments of the U.S. Amendment. And what have we been fighting for ever since we were freed in 1865 with the Emancipation Proclamation? What have we been fighting for? Freedom, right? And do we still have it? Because December 15th, 1791, when those Bill of Rights was written and put together and passed and ratified, we weren't free. You know who was? White men. So that's why that's why people don't understand it. The term white supremacy, because America has always been for the benefit of white men and white men only. We had a black president, and we're still out here talking about racism. We're still out here talking about racism, right? And then yet you had Nelson Mandela who in America was on a terrorist list, but everywhere else in the country was loved. Everywhere else in the world was loved. Nelson Mandela, and this was a man who spent 30 years behind bars. 30 years behind bars. 30 years behind bars. 30 years behind bars. And yet, like John tells us, okay, we had a biracial. Our BIPOC president wouldn't even take a black man who was a president of an African country off the terrorist list. I'm gonna let that sink in again. But Black Lives Matter. You tell me, how is a man who wanted nothing but prosperity for his people was on a terrorist list in America? You know why that is? Because he was trying to bring all the other countries together and fight for their own sovereignty, their own self-sufficiency, and to see that they didn't need them. America, they don't need America. America need them. America need them, right? Because we do need them. Where do we get most of our natural resources from? Other countries. Our gas, oil. Because here we shut it down because of climate, our other issues that are with our soil. Tell me, right? Tell me. Let's go. I'm gonna read Matthew Scott. I've always believed that MLK Jr. was symbolized as a bringer of peace and equality, while Malcolm X believed the same, except in addition believed justice must be sought by any means necessary, usually in the form of physical resistance from oppression. As I've never really saw Martin in a revolutionary type form, because of the fact that politics brings him up so much. So I always thought that he was somebody that wasn't, really for us. I know he was spotlighted, and the Democrats love him, the Republicans, some love him, but I see him more as a deterrent to actual change. And I think a lot of it is because he would be satisfied with just the same things that we're getting now, because at the end of the day, what did we really even get back then? Because when they did the bus boycott, yeah, they listened, but he could have did so much more with that bus boycott. Right. And that's the thing of it is, because, yeah, we can literally get arrested, but what does that prove? What are we showing people, right? What are we showing people? What are we showing people if I will say it like this, that for me, I believe, and my perspective and opinion is, the problems that we face today and getting to where we need to be as Black people is because of Martin Luther King. Yeah. Honestly, how can we? I don't think we'll ever get that. I don't think we'll ever get that to all classes come together, because we're always going to see something about somebody that we don't like. And that's crazy to me, because I'm going to tell you a story that just happened 6 days ago. And I was at work and somebody was outside smoking, And I was coming around the corner and I kind of scared them. And I asked her, I said, if the guy would have been white, would you have had the same reaction? And she's like, well, no. And I said, do we even realize what you just said? So you were scared because of my skin color, but if you seen somebody that looked like you wouldn't have been scared. So we automatically notice something about somebody. And we literally can't say that we don't, because the first thing you're going to notice about somebody is their skin tone. Is their skin tone? Are they white? They native? They Asian? They Hispanic? Boy, y'all really come with these comments. No, Fred, you know, to me, Fred was more like Malcolm. Fred believed in that self-sufficiency, that self-resistance, and by any means necessary. You know, Malcolm was doing the kumbaya shit, the same shit we doing today. Sit there and get beat on, take it, and not fight back. They want you to sit there and take that ass whooping. Take it and be peaceful. When are we going to get tired of that? Because you know what's crazy is the way that I talk like this, there's people that will literally consider people like the militant blacks, like Hamas, because I want black freedom. I want that black sovereignty. I want that black self-sufficiency. And the only way that we're going to get it is to abolish a lot of these systems, abolish a lot of these laws. That's the only way that we achieve it, because we don't need equity. We need equality, right? And that's what people fail to realize, is that we're so stuck on equity instead of being seen as equals, right? Because that's what frustrates me. And it really does, is like everybody is so focused on equity and not equality, because there is a difference. For everybody to be on the same playing field. And I know we'll never see that, but equity is never going to get us there. Equity is never going to get us as black peoples as being equals. And it's never, because there's always going to be a loophole in it. There's always going to be a loophole in it. Why you think all this legislation that comes out, right? Affirmative action, that's not for us. That benefits white people. It doesn't I'm going to tell you right now, and this is even what Claudine Gay. No, I mean equity. I mean equity. There's a difference. We want equality, not equity. No, we need equality. We don't need equity. We already got equity. That's the problem. You guys, you don't even understand that. We already have equity. We need equality. We already have equity. See them, boy. We already have equity. We need equality. We need to be seen as equals. Equity is always it's never, if we have equity, it's never going to be, we're never going to be taken for merit. It's always going to be, we had some type of advantage, just like with Claudine Gay, just like with Clarence Thomas. Those are Clarence Thomas got into an Ivy League school because of affirmative action. Same reason of why Claudine Gay is at Harvard is for the same affirmative action, DEI, because of equity. She's not there because of her accomplishments of merit. And I'm going to stand by that. She's not there because of her merit. Because we'll never be seen as equal because we're okay with equity. Because we think we have an advantage and we don't. It doesn't give us an advantage. It doesn't. And I want people to understand that. We need equality, not equity. We need everybody to be seen as equals, regardless if you're man, woman, whatever. Doesn't matter. How is equity going to catch us up when it always gets somebody in an advantage? That's what I don't understand. How is it, right? Because if we talk about equity, look at all these banks, look at all these the home loans, look at the job market, the business owners. How is equity helping us? Nobody's saying that. See, that's the one thing that we got to understand too, right? No, but there's ways to get to equality without equity. There's ways of doing that, right? And that's what people don't understand. There's ways of doing that. There's pathways to that, just like there's pathways to abolishing the police. But because we're too undereducated to know how to do that, because there's ways of doing it. There's ways of doing it. But instead, we rather march, protest, than to go organize, strategize, and get what we want. Because there's ways of doing it. That's why there's every state has a constitution, every city has a city charter that they have to go by. That is just like, that's just written in blood. Because there's only one way to change that, and that's by us, the people, we the people. Only we the people can change that shit. But because we're too undereducated, we don't understand that. That's why I want people to pick up books and read, because reading is so fundamental. It is. You know what I'm saying? And I'll tell you like this, that the journey that I've been on with sitting here learning and learning, because I learn every day, regardless if it's about police. Because I'll tell you right now, reading is fundamental. Because I've sat there and I've read police manuals, their policies, use of force, and then because those are things we can change, but because we're too undereducated, we ain't, because we don't know how to fight it. And that's why we sit here and we believe that these consent decrees, we believe that these settlements, these lawsuits change anything. No, because we still out here saying names. Since George Floyd, since Breonna Taylor, since Rodney King, since Emmett Till, since Medgar Evers, we still saying names. And for what? Because we don't stand behind true leaders. We let them kill Fred, right? We let them kill Malcolm. We just let them take, and don't do nothing. When is going to be our uprising? When is going to be our revolution? When are we actually going to fight for that equality? Because that's what's going to take by any means necessary. If people don't believe or don't think that, see, because people are going to view me right now as like, oh man, he like Hamas. Well, that's what I got to be seen as, to fight for black people. Well, call me Hamas then. Right? Because I'll take that. Not saying I don't care. Free Palestine. But that's what it is. You literally, it's just like you have people, they saw the Black Panthers as Hamas. That's literally America's FBI, CIA, all the politics, seeing the Black Panthers. And y'all don't even, as Hamas, and y'all don't even understand that. Don't even understand it. Because there's no difference. But because we're too undereducated and we don't want to go inform ourselves, we'll just go with the masses and look like asses. Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of people on the wrong side of history. The wrong side of history. I ain't never seen so many. This should be crazy as hell because you can't mention anything about Jewish people right now. You'll be called anti-Semitic quick as hell. And it's crazy because we got an election coming on and it's going to flip the whole fucking 2024 election. And people don't even understand it. So just watch what I say, because you're going to see AIPAC put all this money into fighting Muslim legislators, U.S. senators. Watch. But they're not going to put money. Nobody's going to put money. That's what's crazy, to go up against Amy Klobuchar, who lied and threw innocent Black young men in prison. And yet these are people that vote for her. And these are the type of people we want, who say they have our best interest, when they sit there, will lock our kids up and not do shit about it. So again, that's what we want, the lesser of two evils. Because remember, Satan is at the polls. Remember that when you vote, that you're voting for Satan, because it's at the polls. So with that being said, y'all have a great Saturday. Same time tomorrow. I'll be back. Win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell. Wish me well.
Every day, fighting for my life. Every day, fighting for my life. Fighting for my life. Fighting for my bread. Grew from the seed you thought was rock. I think not. Fire bred desire to rise above denial, to rise from former ashes to face new trial for more triumph.